Craig in Los Angeles who says you want to argue with me. You go to the front of the line. What's up?
Okay, so while I totally agree with you, we have to save Social Security. I think where you and I disagree is on a couple of issues, what the American dream is and how to save Social Security. My father, unlike your father, was not a union guy, and unlike your father-in-law, did not work for the government. My father went to college. He paid his own way, went to a public college. He ended up putting a shingle out over his door, and he sold mortgages. He sold home loans all by himself, and he was able to make a living for himself. I think in his mind, that was the American dream. He did not come from an upscale family.
Yeah, he was an entrepreneur. He did my version of the American dream.
Okay, so he succeeded. Now,
yeah.
I would say I grew up in a slightly upscale, upper middle class family.
Right, as my kids did, basically.
My wife and I both work. We have 2 kids. We've been married 17 years.
What's your point, Craig?
Well, here's the point. Unfortunately, my wife and I fall into the categories at the very bottom of the upper 1% in combined incomes in the country. And every time the left talks about funding, whether it is Social Security, whether it is bringing down the debt, it always falls on our shoulders. I am sick of taking care of everybody else. I can barely live in Los Angeles, believe it or not, on that upper 1% income, leading a very modest lifestyle.
Well, what country would you like to move to, Craig?
I don't want to move. What I want...
What country does it the way that you would want it done?
America does it.
What country does it the way... Give me an example of a system where it works the way that you would like it to work.
The United States is the best system in the world, 100%. What I don't.
Come on, we have one of the worst infant mortality rates in the developed world. We've got one of the shortest survival times in the developed world. In the developed world, we're at pretty much the bottom of the tank. We're number 27 in education. We're in the toilet. It's a disaster in the United States compared to the rest of the developed world. Tell me the name of one country that has the tax structure that you want. I'm guessing that the only countries that you can come up with are Somalia, Ethiopia, Egypt, places like that, because those are the places where if you're really rich, you don't pay any taxes. Mexico, perhaps, and there is no middle class.
Thom, can I finish my point? I'll tell you. The United States is the best system out there. It's not perfect. And by the way, I personally am offended when you tell me that I don't want to take care of the middle class, or I just want an upper
I'm not talking
class.
about taking care of, Craig. I'm talking about creating space for. There's a difference.
Here's the issue that I have with you. Creating space for, I'm all for. How to create that space, I want there to be some fairness across the board. I don't care if it's a flat tax. I don't care what it is, but I personally am sick and tired, as I think a lot of the United States is. By the way, a lot of people that make a lot less money than I, with the government saying that because you're successful, you're not doing your fair share.
Craig, as an entrepreneur, as somebody, I'm assuming you're working for yourself.
No, I don't. I'm a sales guy. I work for a large company.
Okay, so you work for a large company. Let me ask you a question, Craig. Let me ask you a question. How much do you make?
My wife and I combined are in the upper 1%.
No, I'm just, how much, if you don't mind. Or you can just throw out a hypothetical if you want. It'll still work for my question.
Okay, we live in Los Angeles. Our combined income is approximately $500,000 a year.
Okay, so let's say that your employer is paying you $250,000 a year, okay?
Okay, fine.
And you're paying half of that in taxes. Probably about right?
That's correct.
Okay, so your employer knows that at the end of the day, you'll do the job that you're doing right now for $125,000, right?
Yep.
Okay, so if your taxes are cut in half, what's your employer going to do?
You're missing my point once again.
No, this is a very serious question.
No,
if your taxes are cut in half, so you have an additional $75,000. You're now taking home $200,000, and your employer knows that you or somebody just like you will do that job for $125,000. What's that employer going to do?
You're going to say they're going to lower my income. However,
I'm going to say that if you look at the history of the United States, every time there was a tax cut on income tax in the United States, it was followed by a wage reduction. Every
Tom,
single time. And every time
Tom.
there was a tax increase. Now here's the other flip side of this, Craig. Your employer knows you have a lifestyle that requires you to make $125,000 take home at the end of the day. What happens if your taxes go up by 30%?
I'll tell you what happens. I'll tell you exactly what happens in my case. I have a person that helps my wife and I raise our children for 30 hours a week that we've had for 12 years in our house. We pay taxes on her. We've never not paid taxes on her. We give her time off. We pay her. We pay her regardless.
Now, what's your employer going to do when your taxes go up 30%? Because it's not going to just be you. It's going to be everybody in your tax bracket.
It's going to be me, and I've got to figure out a way to cover my tax.
Now, when
increase.
when your taxes go up, you and everybody else, all the other salespeople out there that you're competing with for the exact same job, are all going to say, we want to maintain the same standard of living, and we need a raise. And that's how it works. That's why the minimum wage in Denmark is $16.80 an hour, and the minimum wage in the United States is more or less $7 an hour, depending on where you live. And the reason why is because their average tax on an average working person is around 45%, and their tax on somebody making your kind of income is around 65 or 70%. So what happens is wages go up. Taxes. Here's where you've been suckered, Craig. And I don't mean this by way of making fun of you or kicking you. I'm saying this person to person. This is where you've been suckered. Honest to God. The rich, the people, the really rich, the people who are funding Stephen Moore, those guys, if they're making $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million a year, the John Paulsons of the world making $4.5 billion. If their taxes go down, their take-home goes up. If their taxes go up, their take-home goes down. But guys like you and me, well, at least you, I'm an entrepreneur, but guys like you and the people who work with me, who work for a living, who take a paycheck, are subject to the laws of the marketplace. And when taxes go up, the marketplace is going to get tighter, and when taxes go down, the marketplace gets looser, which means that when taxes go up, wages go up, and when taxes go down, wages go down. There's a difference between working people's taxes and rich people's taxes, and you haven't figured that out yet.
No, Tom, I'm an educated guy. I understand what you're saying, but you're talking.
Then how can you be disagreeing with me?
No. You're talking about two very different issues. You're talking about taxes being paid on investments or on Wall Street investments, talking about capital gains taxes. You're talking about taxes that brokers are paying being different than take-home wages. Look, you and I can have a discussion where you and I are probably a little bit more in line, but I'm not talking about that. That is not comparing apples to apples. You are not comparing apples to apples.
I think I am, Craig, because if you're suddenly, if tomorrow, your employer had, Jesus came down, touched him on the forehead and said, from now on you're going to be super nice to all your employees, and he decided to triple your paycheck. I doubt, and you can reality check me on this, but I doubt you would triple the expanse of your lifestyle. I'm guessing that probably at least half that money you'd start putting into investments, right?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You'd buy a bigger house? Isn't your house big enough?
No, can I tell you something? I'm telling you, my wife and I lead a very conservative lifestyle. We don't want to keep up with the Joneses. We just want the status quo.
Right, you and your wife and your nanny. I get it, but I'm saying that if suddenly you had a whole lot more money, you'd start investing that. And that's my point. When people are in the income category where any excess money that they get, or any substantial amount of excess money they get, simply ends up as investment, that's the point at which we should be seriously saying, okay, they got enough, and now we're going to have higher tax rates. And Craig, apparently that's where you and I disagree. Craig, I think we've both had our say on this, and the music has started. I got to wrap it up. But thank you for your call, and thank you for having the integrity to actually have a decent and honest conversation with me rather than a shouting match. I appreciate it. For more on this and other topics, please visit thomhartmann.com.